And I think class is in session officially.
All right.
So yeah, here we are online and live, and welcome to Accademia Giallo Rivisitato. We are going back to this is sort of like remedial Accademia Giallo. We're going back to look at the first film, or one of the first films that we discussed for this series, called Blood and Black Lace, from either 1964 or 1965. I've seen a couple of dates on this. One of you scholarly types, please correct the record.
64 is what I've always heard it
Yeah.
as.
Yep.
Okay.
I concur.
All right. Now, this is Mario Bava, and in the course of the couple of years since we started this class, we've watched some Bava films, and I had forgotten a lot of this movie because I forget a lot of the movies that I watch because I'm getting old and I don't get nearly enough sleep. So in one way, I was rediscovering a film that I already seen, watching it as if I'd never seen it before. And in other ways, I was like, yeah, this feels comfortable, like a nice pair of slippers.
Mm.
But I think the biggest takeaway for me is this is the first time I think that I've watched one of our films from Accademia Giallo a second time. A lot of these are first time views for me, so the mysteries, I'm on the edge of my seat. I don't know where it's going. Even now, watching where knowing what I know and knowing how things resolve, I'm picking up on a lot of the red herrings, and especially what Bava does to dress up those red herrings. It's almost obnoxious, but it's so clever, especially picking up on these things the second time around, that I had not noticed the first time at all, because I didn't think of them as red herrings. I just thought of them as weird. Oh, hold on a second.
Oh,
everybody.
Really? Might we be graced with himself?
Running into the classroom, sweating and huffing and puffing, as always.
With a note from his mom.
Hey, everybody, let's do Blood and Black Lace. Oh, I guess I could show up for that class too.
Wait, AC, did you suggest this, or was this Brian?
This was Brian.
Oh, because Kitley, I thought you had mentioned that because my recollection was AC. I don't know. I
just said it would be worth revisiting. That's all, especially if you didn't if it was just an audio only.
Ah, okay. Yeah, the earlier episodes and a number of the other series we've done on Italian cinema have been audio podcasts, because we're talking some cases pre-pandemic. YouTube is where the pandemic era really kickstarted the YouTube thing for Kicking the Seat. So, and yes, I do have to put together video versions of some of those episodes to put up on the channel at some point, because it's a great idea. But so Brian, we're just kind of talking about, I was giving an introduction to the fact that we are revisiting Blood and Black Lace as sort of our inaugural show for this class, to see what we've learned. I was mentioning that the first time through, and this is the first time I've watched one of these a second time, I was just trying to figure out the mystery and getting caught up in the experience of seeing a movie for the first time, really enjoying it. The second time, I'm mostly picking up on all the red herrings that Bava, places for us, in our path to obscure who the identity of the killer or killers happens to be. So, since we've already been down this path, we don't have to go into everything, but we should at least set the stage. Brian, since
Revista.
What's that?
Revista.
Oh, I thought you were calling. I thought you were saying Harry Vista. Anyhow, since I know the reason you were late for class is because you were busy writing down the most epic synopsis of this film that you had to share with us. So go right ahead. I would not deprive you.
I'm just going to go off the dome because you guys gave me shit for reading off the back cover last time. So no, this is arguably the start, I would say, of like what we know of as Italian giallo movies. The synopsis is pretty simple. It's an Italian fashion house, plagued with murders, and they're trying to figure out who's the murderer, who's the one in the black, trench coat outfit with the mask and the leather gloves and all that stuff. It pretty much plants you right then and there. Like, this film is all cinematic. with the title screen, with the introduction of all the characters, and then you come in and it's the sign of the fashion house, and it breaks in, and then the camera moves forward. It's like you're dropped into this planet of Italian Giallo, for the very first time. So I hesitate in saying anything more for people that have not seen this movie, because it's such a treat for the eyes. It's such a treat for all the senses. It's exactly what Giallo is all about in terms of the mood, the mood that's set. All the things that you can actually kind of tangibly feel through the screen. Like, it's all there for you. It's probably, I would say, my favorite Bava film. And honestly, like, before I knew what Italian Giallo was, when I first watched this movie, you just get a sense of something different, something unusual, something that you've never seen before. So it's crazy to me that this movie came out in the 60s, and people that are really familiar with Italian cinema are the only ones that really know about this film. Because if you mention this film, like, say, a Walking Dead film festival or whatever, a convention, people won't know what the hell this movie is. It's until you get to, like, the wastelands of the world or whatever, where people actually identify with this movie and know what it's about.
You mean like cinema wasteland, not like actual wasteland.
Right?
They're pretty close.
but truthfully, this movie is in sort of a class of its own. You can label it as a Giallo, you can label it as Italian cinema, you can do all that stuff, but when you sit down and watch it, it's true visionary cinematic, an experience to behold. So, again, that synopsis was from my head. I'm sure it doesn't really paint a good picture of what the movie is about, but just know that it's about, Italian fashion model murdering and black glove killers and, all that good stuff. So.
No, bravo. I was going to say well done, but we're speaking bad Italian here, so. But no, it's, having watched a number of these films in recent years and talking to you all, or a configuration of you guys, has really given me an appreciation for this film in particular, because it's kind of a blend of what sort of came before these films got into, like, bright, daring color, and also before they got over the top in terms of, like, the graphic violence and the nudity. This is, there, I don't think there's plenty of flesh in the film, but they're like, people in their underwear, right? There are violent attacks, but the violence is mostly, and this is one of the reasons I wish Blake Ficarra were able to join us, and he was sorry he couldn't. But reading his book Scored to Death, which I finally finished volume 1 after several months of picking it up and coming back to it, appreciating sound design and score and what's done here. The first attack, where I believe it was the model Isabella, she is attacked outside in the dark, outside of this Italian fashion house, and the killer, who famously wears, oh, we lost Brian, hope he's coming back. The killer famously wears a kind of a white stocking mask and a black fedora and black outfit. He strangles her against a tree, and the strangling sound, it just sounds like, oh, hold on a second, Brian is coming back. Now we have two Brians. Interesting.
Oh, that's weird.
I'm going to see. Okay, I'm going to remove you from the stream. I'm going to remove Phantom Brian from the stream. There. Okay, Phantom Brian is no more. But what I was saying was, when the killer attacks Isabella against that tree, the sound of the strangulation, it just sounds like leather gloves tightening leather. It's such a straining, horrible sound. And then you hear her head getting kind of thunked against the tree a couple of times. That's worth more than any graphic, head explosion or, ripped throat that we've seen in some of these other pictures. And the way that the sound, the dramatic music drops out during a lot of these kind of cat and mouse chases through these spooky settings. It's brilliant stuff.
And not to mention too, like, jumping on what you just said, when you consider this and compare it to something like The Girl Who Knew Too Much, it's just apples and oranges it's night and day in terms of, like, the graphic nature of this movie. This one's a lot more fetishistic. Fetishistic, is that how you say it?
Mhm.
In terms of the leather gloves, in terms of him dragging the victims, and you see the panties of the victims and things like that. Like, I think this is a lot more sadistic, a lot more demented in that way, but artfully done. Like, it's just so beautiful. It's funny, like when I talk to people about this movie and mention that it's beautiful, they're like, wait, what? Like, it's a brutal movie, but the way that it's laid out, it's just so artistic and wonderfully done. So I think that's part of the charm.
I mean, jumping way ahead here, Greta, one of the last victims in the film,
My God.
she's drowned
Mhm.
in her bathtub, and then it's made the killer wants to make it look like a suicide, so
Mhm.
cuts her wrist. There's a shot of Greta lying dead in the tub. She's wearing like a white bra, and then all of a sudden you just see the red kind of flooding up in the water up to towards
Mhm.
her face. Yeah, that's artsy and tasteful, as tasteful and artsy as you can get with a,
It's
a scene of a
gorgeous.
woman being
It's
drowned
yeah,
and
yeah,
slit open.
and oftentimes, like, Italian films do get that moniker in terms of style over substance, whereas this one, I feel it just has it all. It's very immersed in the substance in terms of, like, finding out who the killer is, the complicated structure of the killers in
Mm.
plural, and then just everything surrounding it, and the way that it's beautifully shot. You get that shot of what's in that diary, and then you get everybody's face looking at the purse. Like, it's just so beautifully crafted. Like, it's just filmmaking at its best, I think. So
Yeah. So AC and John, I see you hiding in the back of the class. I'm calling on you. No, I don't even have a question, but now that because I'm sure you guys have seen this film a few times and possibly, hopefully, revisited it for this episode. Did you pick up on anything new in this discussion of it? And have any of our previous lessons kind of helped recontextualize any of what the way that you watched it for this new version?
I don't think I picked up anything new other than the fact that every single time you watch this, you're reminded of how much of a master craftsman Bava was, because there is not a shot in here that doesn't just reek of style, from the colors. I mean, even like Brian mentioned, the opening sequence, the opening of the film with the titles and the introducing the characters, those are shot stylistically. Um, every character in the film is a red herring. There's no nice people technically in this film, and I'm not saying that they're all evil or anything, but they all have their demons, and it's just, you watch this in every single shot, the way he places the different colors in different parts of the screen is just amazing. So if anybody is a Giallo fan and has not seen this, you have to see this, because it is a gorgeous film. It's
the
unbelievable.
the film is amazing.
It's funny because I just finished a month-long series with Mark Krawczyk on his Spoiler Room podcast. He did a series called "It's So Lifelike," and we were watching a bunch of movies about like wax museum horror, like House of Wax and Waxwork and other things involving wax. But watching those I was reminded of those watching that opening sequence, because it's like these tableau with these crazy colors and all of our featured players as their names come up on the screen and they're just standing perfectly still. It's a great way to introduce a fashion model house movie, even though that they don't really get into a lot of that, because we're pretty much very quickly into the murder. I mean, it's the first scene essentially, and the rest of it is about the investigation. I think there's one like kind of fashion runway scene where they're trying to get people, dressed or, out onto getting ready for a show. But the rest of it is just about the investigation, which I appreciate. But it does still very much have the fashion industry on its mind. And we've seen some other movies involving like sleazy older guys involved with like, younger pretty models, and then murders start happening. But I think this is probably the classiest of of all of them.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
speaking
And then
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thanks. I mean, the opening, it's what's interesting about it is that there is kind of a quaintness to it as well, because it's kind of a curtain call. You know, we're introducing, these are actors, they are going to be playing parts in this drama about to unfold, but it's a curtain call in reverse, because we don't usually get to have a curtain call ahead of the drama. Usually your curtain call comes at the end. And so it's kind of like an upending of the theatricality of it. And I think the theatricalism is a nice way of talking about what Bava is doing. He's heightening everything. Nothing is, quote, realistic. Everything is kind of like turned up to 10 on every single level, but it's all done intentionally. It's all done very mindfully and artistically. And so that while there isn't a sense of realism, there is as Brian was saying, there's a sense of true immersion in what cinema can be.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I did learn from this one was Bava's cinematographer, or his Ubaldo Terzano, he was more or less he was the camera operator, but Bava did all of his own lighting. You know, like everything. So technically, Bava is the DP for pretty much every movie that he did.
Yeah.
So he's the one creating the look of the film, and you know, the quote cinematographer is really the one who's just driving the camera around and making that vision come to life.
Yeah. And then to your point, like there's so many directors that are tagged as like a visionary or whatever, but usually it's the cinematographer that takes the ideas and takes it to another level, right?
Right.
Bava
is
pretty
that
much
guy.
has, he's got like full control over all of his movies, and you can see that, and he's a true visionary in terms of like what's in his head and then what you see on screen.
Well, I don't think nobody had ever seen anything like this before.
Right.
I mean, like just in terms of the vision that he brings, I mean, literally visionary, like the vision that he brings to the screen, this hadn't been seen anywhere before. Technicolor had been used, and there's Tim Lucas on the Arrow commentary. He talks about a quote from Ernst Lubitsch, who says, you can have this Technicolor. Technicolor works great for the musicals, works great for comedies, but you can't use it for a drama, and you can't use it for a thriller. Just can't be done. And Bava says, hang on, watch this.
Hold my
Pretty much.
J&B.
Yeah, there you go.
Hey, was there a J and B in here?
I believe there is. I forget, but I remember seeing it in one of those websites where they clock in wherever the J and B is or whatever.
I love that a website exists like that.
Yeah, it's
course, why wouldn't
solely
it?
for J and B, spottings or whatever.
That's funny.
Extra credit for whoever can bring that up for us live on the live stream.
Yep.
Because I was looking for, I think I was halfway through the movie and I was like, oh shit, I forgot to look for J and B. But I do want to ask a question.
I think it's in the background somewhere. I think it's more used like, it's, but usually there's somebody pouring J and B or whatever. I think it's kind of way in the background.
By the way, don't make this gesture again. But no, I want to ask a question, and I want to get some comments because we have some comments.
Oh, great.
Up. And if you're tuned into this and you're watching, feel free to drop in, ask us questions, or tell us what you think of Blood and Black Lace. So my question is, talking about that opening, and it just occurred to me to think about it, and I feel like I should go back and watch this again, but I'm not going to pause the show to do that. Is there any clue in that opening kind of curtain call, as you put it, AC, as to who the killer is? Is there anything? Are there any color or kind of set or costuming details that might say, hey, after you're done, go back and watch this again because we're shining a spotlight on who our assailants are?
I don't think so. What I think is that we get a sense of everybody has a hidden past.
Yeah.
Like everybody looks like they have something going on behind the eyes.
Yeah.
And that's great. These are okay. So here, like, these are all going to be interesting people. You're all you're going to enjoy meeting every single one of these people.
Like
And they are
the one character has what are they? You have the habit. The one the
Oh,
drug
right.
addict
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
oh right.
who just looks like he's nervous, but the cop looks at him
Mhm.
and he goes, "I know you got the habit." You're like, oh, sorry.
And then you have Pietro Bigozzi. Just the shorter guy, the
Italian Peter Lorre.
the designer. Yeah.
Yeah.
He always, whenever he shows up in a movie, he just looks suspicious. He looks like the guy that did it or whatever.
He usually doesn't end well for him either.
Yeah, you're right. But,
All right.
But yeah, to your question, Ian, everybody just looks suspicious. Everybody looks like they're hiding something, and I think that's the point of the introduction. Is like, okay, now we're here, and as everything is getting laid out, like we see those two people meeting in the night in sort of the rain, the storm, and you know that there's something going on. You know that homeboy is like, fixing for something, in terms of some kind of drug or whatever. But you're automatically planted into this place, and they're already going about what they're doing on this particular night, and then you're treated to that first murder, and it's like boom, like oh my god, there's like so much more going on behind the scenes here.
Yeah, I mean that dark and stormy night thing. That's typically we usually see that as the kind of the finishing piece of a horror movie or a thriller. Lightning and rain. It's very dramatic.
Yep.
But here we get it right at the off.
Right off the bat. Yeah.
It's almost like kind of very much like early like Suspiria in a way.
Yeah.
But I do want to get to some comments. All the comments so far are from Big Swifty 500.
Big
It's been a while.
Swifty.
Yeah.
What's up, Big Swifty?
Hey guys, this is my number one favorite giallo of all time, and also one of my favorite films of all time, hands down.
High five.
All right, high 500, sir.
Yep.
Cinematography and color charts are off the hook. I've never seen a more lush and beautiful movie in my life, except for Tokyo Drifter. I don't know what Tokyo Drifter is. I should probably find that out. Do you guys know what Tokyo Drifter is?
It's not one of the Fast and the Furious, is it?
No.
That was my first thought. That's Tokyo Drift, and
that's a cartoon anyway.
This is the spin-off.
Yes.
Get it? Spin-off?
I get it.
Spin-off? Oh, we're good.
Yeah.
I don't know, because we're talking Italian cinema here. So
How do you know?
Those are Italian cars.
That's right.
I think Vin Diesel's Italian or something. I don't know. Let's see. He plays Dominic Toretto. Yeah, don't spoil it, guys. Well, I threw up the spoiler banner. I hope I put this up before or
We
after.
haven't spoiled it for the most part.
Yeah.
No, not yet.
You
Not
can't
yet.
spoil this movie. You have to. It's not about the plot.
True,
right.
Yes, the mystery is part of the fun for sure, but it's about watching it. It's about experiencing each one of these scenes, these set pieces. It's one of those. It's one thing to know about it, but it just is a whole other thing to experience it firsthand.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You have to insert yourself into this movie, to experience it fully.
Yeah, I mean, even if you were to, and now I'm conflicted because I know we've talked about this already. I know we've got the spoiler banner up, but there's a part of me that says I just don't know if I want to get into all that. But
Let's just do it. Let's just,
okay,
Rip the Band-Aid off.
I'm a
out.
sucker for peer pressure. So we've got the Countess who sort of runs this fashion agency, I guess, or she's high up in it, and then we've got Max or Massimo. He's I'm kind of fuzzy on who all of these people are. Is he the money guy, or who is Massimo?
He's the director of the fashion house. He's like the one that takes care of the finances and all that. Like basically you
He's
get
the
sense,
manager.
yeah, but you get the sense that he was brought on because she's having a romantic relationship with him. So he really has no role other than he's there to just like clean house, basically,
Yeah.
with his own manipulative plotting or whatever.
Oh, I shouldn't let this go. It's in my notes somewhere, but it's buried. There's a movie that came out this weekend, called Don't Worry, Darling. And it's funny because at one point, I think it was Massimo who was talking to the Countess, I believe, after it's been revealed that they are the partnered killers, taking out people to cover up a bit of blackmail for the murder of her husband, which they committed together. One of the models, Isabella, who was the first to die in the film, finds out and is blackmailing them and taking a little bit too far. They're like, we can't just keep paying her these exorbitant amounts of money. Let's just take her out. But at one point, Massimo or Max says, "Don't worry, darling." And that reminded me of, and it's in that same kind of like condescending tone as the film that was made with that title that came out is meant to be. So that was kind of kismet. Let's see. Also, Bava's masterpiece, according to Big Swifty, and I don't think you'll find disagreement here. And studied it in film school. That is fascinating. I would love to attend. I mean, not that we're not in a class right now learning about it, but it'd be cool to go to a film school and really break this down in the way that you would in a curriculum.
I just have to mention Big Swifty. He's been around ever since the Giallo Room, and big shout out to him because he was always trying to figure out who the Baron was, kind of like a detective, like an unrelenting detective on the case trying to crack who the killer was or whatever. So, what's up, Big Swifty?
And he's still with us. He's still alive. So I assume the mystery goes on.
Yeah, right.
Because if he ever found out, that's a great transition there, Brian, because I want to talk about the detective in this movie. He's, I guess kind of took it for granted that I was used to watching movies with good detectives in them. So when I saw Blood and Black Lace, I'm like, oh, this is just a movie detective. Later on, I would see movies with detectives who barely qualified to hold their jobs. And it's refreshing to go back and see someone who knows what they're doing, to see an honest to goodness investigation throughout the movie. And he's such a suave guy. He's someone I could have followed through a series of movies.
Yeah. And very unrelenting, very like he's got his eye on, the entire scenario, the scenery or whatever. Like he knows every little detail. Where were you? Let me question the girl that's crying because that's probably a friend of hers, like that kind of detail, so
it's also got those icy, like steel eyes that just like look right through you. I felt like I was in trouble watching the movie.
One of my favorite detectives in these films, like of all time. He's just he doesn't get enough talk in terms of like appreciating every character in this movie. Just a great character, I think.
And not, I was going to say not integral to the plot, but because that's not really true, but he's not integral to the resolution of the film.
Sure.
Because I had forgotten, frankly, how this movie ended, because Max convinces the Countess to go and knock off Greta because they needed, I guess, they were going to set it up to make it look like Greta was the killer. Was that it? And then she killed herself. After this deed is done, Max shows up at the door, pounding on it of the apartment to essentially freak the Countess out. And she tries to escape and she falls off the building, we think to her death. So Max has gotten away with the perfect crime until the Countess shows up, battered and bloody and bruised, and they have this embrace, and she shoots him and he dies. But then I guess it comes to her own injuries right after calling the police. So it ends with him dead on the floor. She collapses on top of him, and this beautiful dangling red phone receiver. So we know the detective's going to show up after the movie's over and, piece everything together. But there isn't a dramatic, like rushing through the door with the other cops, guns drawn, saying, "Ha, we've got you. We've figured it out." It's just, it's refreshing, even in 2022.
And truthfully, this is a choose your own adventure kind of ending. Like, you don't know if she survived. She might have just collapsed and hunched over him, Massimo, and then the cops show up and maybe resuscitate her, and then she lives off like in her own thing, knowing that all this transpired. Maybe she's implicated in terms of the murders. Like, we don't know what's going on. And I think that's part of the love that I have for this film, is it doesn't necessarily like tie things up neatly at the very end. It leaves it for the viewer to just imagine what goes on afterwards,
And there was another kind of a motif talking about leaving it up to the viewer. I picked up on this, and I don't believe I had the first time. I haven't listened to that conversation in a while, but there's a lot of mirrors and reflection and kind of duality symbolism going on in here. When the one girl is in the in the antique store, right, and very effective scene. Something
I
that
fucking love that scene so much,
and
I'm so in love with that scene.
And I don't know if this is the first time this technique was used, but we see it in horror movies all the time now, where someone's looking like down a hallway or in a crowded room, and then you see the killer, and then the lights kind of strobe out, and then they come back on, and then the killer's not there, or they're that's very effective stuff. But at one point, she is running towards, I think it's either a mirror or like a glass doorknob or something, and then you see her hand reach out, and then it kind of reveals that we were kind of looking at the reflected image.
That's done a couple times in this movie.
Well, and I was thinking about the later on. There was a scene where the lady was tortured and burned to death in that boiler room. Eventually ends up in Greta, the model's house out in the country. She hides the body. The body is then hidden from her. She's strangled to death, and what we're left with is, again, two bodies laying on top of each other. But the first time we see it, it's actually reflected in the glass coffee table on which they're laying, and the camera kind of does a whoopsie toopsie. I don't even know if that's a real phrase, to show that we're looking at the reflection. So again, is this Bava just saying, "Hey, look what I can do with the camera," or is there some greater meaning to it?
I would say it's a yes and. I would say it's.
So tell me about the meaning. What do you interpret this as?
Well, I mean, what he's saying, I think he's playing with the mirror images, that he's going to be bringing that back again at the end of the film. He'll say, like it's a motif. So I think he's setting something up. And when we see it in this original instance, we're like, okay, the bodies are piling up,
Okay.
And at the end of the movie, it is those who are the murderers who are piling up. So it's, I just feel like, he was looking for something that could mirror off of one another.
But I also feel that it's almost like he's inviting you to that notion of nothing is as it seems here. Like you're watching all these things, and they're all tricks. They're all tricks. Like there's that scene. I believe it's after the first murder within the antique shop. The next shot, I want to say, is the shot of Clarice, the cleaning lady, and she's hunched over in that black trench coat, right? So it's almost like he's always trying to keep you guessing. He's always trying to make you feel like nothing is as it seems, because he's trying to keep you on edge to make sure that you're paying attention to every little detail here,
Well, and I feel like, we kind of have to mention that, like, the original title for this was 6 Women for the Assassin. So, that's the original Italian title. And what that does, it kind of sets up an expectation of, you've got 6 murders coming your way, and I think there's a kind of a fun quality to it. There's one point where Eva Bartok's character says, "That's 4." And as an audience member, you go, okay, so there's 2 more coming. And I think, like you have to also point out that, while we got the spoilers banner going, that the idea of the 2 killers, like when people saw Scream in 1996, they like lost their minds. Like, oh my God, 2 killers. That's never been done before. Oh, wait, let's go back, 22 years.
Yeah. And it's true. That's why I always often
always
just
and
wonder. Always and often, yes. Just wonder why this movie isn't as big as it should be. It's a big movie, right? But it's not like Suspiria level or whatever.
I don't think it is a big movie. I don't think that I think people find it,
right?
But I don't think it is one that people just innately know.
No, that's what I'm saying. I wish it was. I wish it was more. In the vernacular of like.
And why that is not the case, I don't know. I included it in Horror 101 because I was like, you need to know this movie. If you're going to talk about Italian horror, you got to talk about this movie as well as part of the conversation.
Right.
Well, I think, we were talking a little bit earlier about the title. I think that might be one of the reasons, because when I hear Blood and Black Lace, it's a perfect title for this movie. After you
Right.
see it, it makes sense. But to the uninitiated, it sounds almost like an episode of the Red Shoe Diaries.
Mm.
It doesn't sound scary. I don't know. It sounds almost too classy to be a horror movie. And who wants to watch a classy horror movie? No. But let's see. I think we've got. Oh, now, Brian, this next one's for you. Come on. Is Brian Baron Martino?
See? You see?
Who wants to
He's
know?
unrelenting detective over here.
Keep detecting. Keep
All of a sudden, there's
detecting.
giant hot white lights over you, Brian. They just popped into the room.
Listen, I'm wearing a black hat, but it's Yankees. It's not a fedora.
Wait, hold up your hands. Hold up your hands. Okay, no black gloves. Okay.
Right.
And then Tokyo Drifter is a Japanese spy film from the late 60s. Some same color palettes, reminds me of Bava. You'll love it. Get the Criterion Blu-ray.
Cool.
See, he knows his shit. Like Big Swifty, as much stuff that I give him in terms of him trying to figure out who the Baron is, like he's actually a real amazing cinephile, whatever. But he knows his movies. He's always brought back when we were still doing the Giallo room on a regular basis, he would always bring in suggestions and stuff from some of these obscure movies. So bravo to Big Swifty.
All right. At some point, we might have to do an extra credit show on Tokyo Drifter, because that sounds amazing.
Well, look at Planet of the Vampires and things like that. Bava was always experimenting with this specific color palette and using it in sort of a way that would fit in each one of the stories that he's trying to tell. I think when you look at this and then you look at something like Bay of Blood, it's almost like when you look at Argento, when you look at Suspiria versus Tenebrae, they're two totally visually stylistic different movies, but they live in the same universe. I think great directors often stretch their limits in terms of what they can do, and they often almost go out of bounds of their own selves because they're so almost, I don't know, bored of the things that they've introduced into the world, and now they have to try something different. So when you look at Bay of Blood, it's so much more muted than Blood and Black Lace, and then all the way throughout. But you also see that he's experimenting with all these different ideas that he's just trying to try on film, much like Argento. Argento, he's always been known for trying the newest technology or just trying something different with the look of the camera or whatever. And same thing with Bava. I think those two live hand in hand in terms of what they try to do in terms of pushing the visuals of a specific movie.
Well, and I also feel like this period for Bava was where he was really playing with those primary colors. We see it in Black Sabbath, we see it here, we see it in Planet of the Vampires, see it in Danger Diabolic. Like he was really into what can I do with color. And then as you get further into it, like you say, Bay of Blood, it doesn't even seem like it's the same.
Right.
It seems like the same director in that the skill level is there.
Right.
But it doesn't feel like it's the same style at all.
Right. This is a lot more
and I think this is what
cinematic.
People talk about. Yeah, this is what people talk about when they think of Bava.
Yeah.
But Bava had a before and he had an after this period.
Mm-hmm. And not to mention, this ignited the Giallo, like what we know of as in terms of what Giallo is, or the specific nuances and characteristics of what people label as in terms of.
But isn't it funny how it's such a delayed reaction? We had some minor Giallo in the in the late 60s, and then Argento's Birth of the Crystal Plumage blew up in 1970. But it's between 1964 and 1970, there's this 6-year gap where we don't see the Giallo explosion. And I think part of it is because this film was not successful in its home country.
Right.
Birth of the Crystal Plumage was a huge commercial and critical success. This one was kind of like it's just one more movie, which is so strange when you look at it now and you just think about how each set piece is worthy of your attention.
Yep.
the whole scene with Mary Arden's character, that her being tortured and her hand pressed against the thing, and then her face pressed against it, and then she gets, her corpse gets carted around for half the movie. There's a funny scene, or funny kind of like behind the scenes story, that when she was in the boot of the car, the actress who was taking her out of the car and hiding her was supposed to hold the lid of the trunk up until it clicked, because then it would stay up. Mm-hmm. And apparently that actress got a little nervous during one of the takes, and it didn't stay up, and it slammed down on Mary Arden's, like right on the bridge of her nose, and she had a scar for the rest of her life. Nice. But yeah, it was like they talked about how like Mario Bava had to like, just kind of take her off set and put ice on her face and like just kind of hold her while she cried. She's like, my career's over. I've risked my life for this stupid movie.
Well, speaking of the body that keeps showing up, it reminds me of the remake of Friday the 13th, 2009. Juliana Gwill's character, she gets, I think, choked by Jason and then shot through the door, and then her body flung out on top of a car. So yeah, I just had to bring that up. But yeah, I mean, like since watching this movie for the first time, for the first show, we have watched Black Sunday, we have watched Bay of Blood, and you guys are right. Like, just kind of, I guess there are creative a creative through line there, but they are so visually distinct and thematically different. Even like you wouldn't necessarily know that it's the same person, and that's the fun of it. It's sort of like watching a Coen. Like, describe me, what is a Coen Brothers movie? And like, well, I don't know. I could list some, but I can't tell you what the through line is.
But yeah, when you just know you're in the hands of a master storyteller.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so Yankees, Savage, go New York.
Oh man. And
I agree 100% about Argento. All right.
Yeah, and then kind of going back to Argento, like he's taking elements of this film and injecting it into some of his earlier work, in terms of just like the killer in black with the black gloves and almost the fetishism that is involved with some of his movies. It's almost like he's always loved Bava. Like, that's always been sort of a mentor to him in terms of his filmmaking and his style and all that stuff. But the fact that he was able to take cues from this film and shape it into his own vision, like what AC was saying in terms of Blood and Black Lace not necessarily being a successful film when it first came out. So it was still sort of like that movie that you have to dig and look for, Argento always being sort of a cinephile in terms of just, spaghetti Western. Like, I think he was a critic beforehand. Yeah. So he was very much plugged into the cinema world or whatever. So he's always cited Fellini and things like that as in terms of his mentors. And Bava was very big for him too. So the fact that he was able to take what Bava already did and presented and then make it into his own thing, because truthfully, people always say that Argento apes all this stuff, but he's very much his own auteur, in terms of like what he brings into the cinema landscape. But he definitely does like borrow from here and there. Like, if you see certain scenes in movies and then you see some of the older 70s movies, you're like, oh, I think that came from that film or whatever.
So do we think that like Argento is the Tarantino of his day?
Oh, no.
Well, I was
waiting to watch the internet just explode.
No.
I was about to ask a very similar question, but not in. But I don't mean that in. I mean that in a quite literal way, because Tarantino does get a lot of shit for stealing stuff from other films and all that. But I think what he has done, at least in my experience over the 30 years since I've been watching him, is he will take these movies, a lot of them obscure films, to American audiences. He's a big cinephile of he loves international cinema, and he kind of takes everything, puts it into a melange, into like the kind of American cinematic language, the pop language of the now, and puts it out there and invites people to go back and discover,
Right.
his influences. Now, he doesn't always cite his sources,
Right.
as in the case of like specifically Reservoir Dogs, but enough people will say, hey, I know that movie. That was, let's go watch, City on Fire, or whatever it was.
One of my favorite little callbacks that he does is in, I think it's Kill Bill 2, where you hear the theme song to Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward, and you're just like, oh my god, like he's not like saying that this is from this movie, but he's planting it in a newer viewer's ear. So maybe when, peripherally, when they hear that again, they're like, oh my god, that's actually from this movie. Like I like stuff like that where he leaves it to you to discover where it's from.
Well, he does what a lot of mainstream American movies do, but he does it for obscure references.
Right.
He'll drop something like, if you're into that, if you're like a real hardcore geek into say Giallo, you'll pick up on the fact that that's a call from Strange Vice of Mrs. Ward, but it's not like a top 100 on the nose track from the radio that you're going to put into a scene to punctuate the comedy. Like you see Tarantino is doing the same thing as a mainstream hack director, but he's doing it on the kind of deep cut geek level.
Well, and I was jesting when I said, Argento, but I think that's what he said is, this deserves attention. When he's referencing Blood and Black Lace, it's not coming from a place of just blatant thievery. It's coming from a place of, I really love this and I want to do my version of this.
Right.
And if it helps call attention to the source material, awesome.
Yeah. And that's and to answer, I think, that's kind of getting back to an earlier question, like why was that such a big gap between this lightning bolt of a movie and Blood and Black Lace and then the genre really taking off? It may be because the audiences didn't find it, but the audience
was not ready for it. Yeah.
But the audience that needed to see it did. Those are the filmmakers. Those are the people who are like, I'm jazzed by this. I'm blown away. I got to do my version or figure out, how to expand on this. And that, takes time, and it takes finding audiences for those pictures.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it takes Argento, moving from being a critic to a screenwriter to a director, it took the time for him to become a director, for him to present any kind of, present his own vision.
And truthfully, I think we already mentioned that Bava was sort of like the cinematographer of all of his films.
Right.
Argento, if you look at like a 2000s Argento movie versus like an early 70s Argento movie, he had his own specific cinematic team, and including a cinematographer. So you can definitely tell the differences. Argento definitely likes to be very involved with the vision of his movies, but I also feel that he's not necessarily a cinematographer. Like there's been often photos of him holding a camera behind the scenes or whatever, but I think in terms of the output, Bava was very much more inclined to be a control freak on the set of his films. Like when you consider Inferno, I think I want to say Argento was sick with like syphilis or something in the beginning stages of shooting that movie. So the very first scene where the female character is immersed in that water, they say that Bava shot that entire opening. So you can definitely see like Argento's style versus Bava's style is very, very specific as if you look closely.
But I think Argento did a lot of special camera designs. So,
well, yeah. Yes.
So I mean, I think he did have an essential part in the look of the film.
Yeah.
Of how he wanted the view to come through.
Sure.
So he may not be as specific as what like Bava was doing, but I do think Argento had a definite vision that he wanted to come across on screen, because he did the same thing with opera, with the spinning crane that they invented, and then Tenebrae, that long 2 or 3 minute shot outside the apartment. So I think he had the vision. But again, like your guys' point earlier, he was taking what Bava had done and putting it through his filter, his vision.
Right.
I do want to, because I started off talking about red herrings. after Isabella's death, the kind of the inciting incident of the movie, we go into the fashion house and everything is kind of very busy. And I think the character's name was Marco, the very nervous looking younger gentleman who's constantly going like this.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point he rushes back to take a phone call behind glass, and we see him duck back there in the shadow. We can't see his face. And in the foreground, on the other side of that glass, is a mannequin, a bright red nude mannequin with like a black wig on it. Isabella had that same kind of hairstyle from what we could see, and she died in a bright red slicker. So I'm thinking, as I'm watching this, I'm like, this guy's making choking gestures. Isabella got choked to death. So I know it doesn't line up because obviously Marco was not one of the killers. But I feel like if Bava was sitting down writing this or planning it out, like, wouldn't it be fun to mess with people in this way? And there's a few of those throughout the movie. It's a great joy.
And I think that's the intention. That's Bava is very notorious for trying to, almost drive it into your skull that he's trying to keep you guessing, keep you on edge, just make you be prepared for anything. And that fucking ending is a humdinger of an ending in terms of what you were used to back then when you're watching a murder mystery. Like, the fact that he takes it to what actually transpires is just genius. He's working on a totally different level than any filmmaker that was out that
well, and I think like Hitchcock, Bava was a great admirer of Hitchcock, as we talked about in A Girl Knew Too Much. I think Hitchcock's relationship to his audience was part of the fun. Like, he knew that, like, I'm gonna give you red herrings, and I'm gonna take you around corners, and I'm gonna misdirect, and you're gonna love me for it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Bava's doing as well, is that he's going, is it here? Is it here? Keep your eye on the ball. Oh, wait, which one is it? Yeah. And he's enjoying having the game. We're enjoying watching him tease us. And I think that's kind of, that's what William Castle had. When you feel like there is an actual relationship going on, a give and a take between the director and the audience.
Yeah. Yeah, and he does it in such a rich and stylistic way that, like I said earlier in the show, it's such a feast for all the senses. But he's also doing that thing where he's very much in a relationship with the viewer.
Well, I mean, I was gonna talk about Hitchcock before you jumped in, AC. So thank you. We're totally
here to ruin it for you.
Spoilers.
Well, this movie is 5 years after Psycho.
Yeah.
Now, I am not immersed enough in film history to know if there was such a thing as, I'd heard the term femme fatales and film noir and all that, but it would seem to me that female killers would be a rare thing in genre. So I'm thinking back to 1960. The audience is, well, whoever hadn't read the novel, by Robert Bloch, were probably very surprised that you've got the killer is a woman, but that woman is a man dressed up as his dead mother. Yeah. And now, flash forward 5 years, you not only have a killer who is actually a woman, but there are two killers, and they're in a love affair because there was this murder, which also, getting back to the matricide and Psycho, there is sort of this kind of not exactly a through line or a connection, but it's not dissimilar. There's the two lovers who are poisoned by young Norman. So yeah, it does again. If Argento was inspired by Bava to go on and really get the genre kickstarted, it felt like the seeds were planted potentially by Hitchcock in Psycho. So it's just fun to watch these little evolutionary steps that it took 10, 12 years, but eventually we got there.
We'll get to Friday the 13th, which is where we really wanted to go, the pinnacle of cinema.
No, look, one reference per show. One. And we have one last comment. We're gonna wrap it up here, gang.
Let me guess, by Big Swifty?
By Big Swifty, yes, of course. The tracking shot through the fashion house with the colors and all the curtains is phenomenal. I read somewhere that Bava mounted the camera on a child's red wagon. This was before Steadicam?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. I do have one. Go ahead. Brian?
I failed to mention that because I think I mentioned that during the first broadcast of the show. So the Little Red Wagon makes another appearance from Big Swifty. So
Yep. I
right.
did have one fun fact that I wanted to throw in. I'd forgotten or didn't know it, but all of the male voices are done in the dub by a single actor, Paul Frees, who is a very famous voice performer. He dubs the entire male cast.
nice.
And so when you go back and listen to it, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, that's Boris Badenov. Oh my gosh, that's the Pillsbury Doughboy. Oh my gosh, that's because Paul Frees was a legend. And I had forgotten that he dubbed like now I'm like, oh wait, that Cameron Mitchell sounds like the inspector, sounds like it's amazing. And the fun fact that I learned from Tim Lucas this time around is that Thomas Reiner, or Rainier, I'm not sure how you say his name, but the one who plays the inspector, he apparently is the German Paul Frees. Like he dubs like everybody, apparently, like German film goers and TV, they immediately identify his voice. They're like, oh, there he is again. So it's ironic that Paul Frees is dubbing the German Paul Frees.
That's so funny.
I guess it'd be like Frank Welker doing voices in a modern day movie. That'd be fun. Anyway,
I watched the Italian version, which I just had. I think it picks up with so many different characteristics from the English version. I just think it's more rooted in what Bava was trying to do.
Well, I think we talked about this initially before I got into the habit of just buying these movies because I'm like, I don't know if these are going to be any good. But I realized this morning that I don't have this on Blu-ray, but I'm going to fix that because I rented it again. I have no problem giving my money to great films, but I didn't need to put this one on my shelf so I can actually watch it in the Italian. That'd be fun.
Well, the Arrow Blu-ray that's the most complete version. It's everything is cleaned up really nicely. You got the commentary by Tim Lucas, a bunch of extras. I mean, Arrow does great work, and I can't remember when this one came out, but it's pretty solid.
Well,
Which one?
The Arrow video.
Oh yeah. That's a phenomenal version of this film. Yeah.
I don't know if I'll be able to take it because honestly, because I'm cheap, I rented the SD version of this movie on Amazon for like 99 cents this morning. It was either $1.99 for HD or SD, 99 cents. And I was still like, it looks great.
Yeah. Did that version, the Amazon version, did that have the opening with the different character introductions?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, because there is a version that just doesn't have that at all.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Hopefully that's been stricken from the internet altogether.
No. I think it's still
right.
on YouTube if you look for it or whatever.
I will not look for it. That sounds
it's also on the Arrow Blu-ray that you can watch as the alternate opening.
But why would you? You know what I mean?
I know that's like saying, "Hey guys, you like to watch video of your youngest being mauled by a bear?" No, not interested.
I would actually get a subscription to that.
I'll keep that in mind for
inside
the Christmas cards.
Inside voice.
No. All right, so Big Swifty it brings us home with damn good point. AC. I assume you're talking about the voice actor, and then didn't know that. Let's see, referring to.
That's probably the voice actor.
Oh, maybe that's it.
Yeah,
okay.
which interestingly enough, like I was wondering if we were going to like bring anything new to this discussion that we haven't already talked about, but apparently leave it to AC to bring in something new.
Hey,
I do want to say, I did some quick research, but there's a website called GatherJournal.com. And they have an article called "The Victim of the Bottle with the Giallo Label," and it's an article about J&B. And there are no images for it, but it lists a number of films in which J&B makes an appearance, and Blood and Black Lace is on that list.
Yeah.
So, in 2 more years, when we come back for a third and final examination of this movie, I expect screenshots, dioramas. No. But anyway, thank you guys very much for talking about this movie with me again. Brian, yes.
I just want to say, like, I know we discuss spoilers and whatnot here, but this is a film that just invites the viewer to just, like I said, just be immersed in pure cinematic beauty. So if you've never seen this movie, if you happen across our lovely little, Accademia Giallo, YouTube show here, and then this kind of pops up as like a recommendation or whatever, and you've never even come across this movie, oh my God, like I implore you to just watch it. It's such, if you love cinema just based on a basic level, this movie will just broaden everything that you would expect and know about what a movie should be and look like. So
if they've gotten an hour into the episode, I imagine they might have gotten the idea that we're fans.
Well, hey, check this out though. Ordering the Arrow Blu-ray now. Thanks, guys. You all kick ass.
Awesome.
Nice.
My kickback.
Nice.
My Arrow kickback.
Do you get residuals and whatnot?
Absolutely.
Yeah, the AC actually stands for
My
Arrow
Patreon.
Cash.
There you go. Nice.
All right, guys, thank you so much. I should actually do our intros or our outros. Hey, we're doing the actual curtain call now. So we've got Horror 101 with Dr. AC. That's AC. That's you down there. Or up there. I don't know what configuration you guys can see on your screens. We've got John Kitley of Kitley's Crypt. We've got Brian Martinez of the Giallo Room. Yes.
And I'm just gonna throw this out there. I've been going through some like personal stuff lately, just kind of working through just myself and trying to be better or whatever. But I did promise like a big Jalloween themed October or whatever. Definitely still going to be doing something fun, but nowhere near as big as what I was planning. So I'm just trying to fit that into my life, because I do want to get back into, the creative part of what the Giallo Room was and whatnot. So all those out there that are like sitting pretty waiting for the Giallo Room to come back, I promise you we'll be back in October, and then hopefully on a more regular basis come 2023. So I just kind of want to throw that out there.
Awesome. And congratulations to you to recognizing, priorities and the importance. I mean, all of this is fun, but you got to make sure that you're your best self in order to do your best work and have the most fun. So,
right.
All right, man. Well, that'll do it for us. I'm not going to put us under the pressure of coming up with another title for October, but we will be. I will say this: whatever we decide, I want it to be like scary and bloody and like really Halloweeny themed. I love Blood and Black Lace, but I want something where there's innards being ripped out if they have something.
Yeah,
like
dude, like I feel like we've been playing it safe lately, and we need to just like bring this Accademia Giallo yellow bus back into like the gritty, almost exploitative nature of what Giallo can be as well. So yeah, definitely we're on the same wavelength in terms of
preferably something with Edwige Fenwick. It's been too long. No. All right.
Bloodstained Orchids. We haven't done that one yet, right?
No. Is that a good recommendation, class?
I mean, but
I would go with Photo of Delirium or Photo of Gloria or Delirium, which was by Lamberto Bava. And it doesn't have Fenwick in it, but it has someone almost as good, at least to look at. And it has George Eastman.
Oh, the guy who created Ninja Turtles.
Yes.
Oh, wait, sorry.
Yes, that is exactly what it is.
Clearly, this is a conversation to be continued.
Yes.
We'll figure it all out. But anyway, thank you, everybody out there who watched this either live or in the past or the future. No, the past. What's wrong with me? Anyway, Big Swifty, big shout out to you. Thank you. Great commentary as always. And for everybody else, if you're watching this and you enjoy this content, please give it a thumbs up. Feel free to subscribe to Kicking the Seat YouTube channel. Check out all of my dear friends and collegiate staffers, faculty, whatever you want to call us. Their information is down below, and join us back next month for October's Accademia Giallo, whatever that is, whenever that is, we'll figure it out. And can't wait to see you. Oh, wait, hold on a second. We have a
hello.
We have a hello from Anmal Ratan Singh. Hello. Welcome to the end of the
Hello.
show.
Yeah.
And feel free to
Hello,
go back
and
and watch
goodbye.
the rebroadcast. Oh,
Watching from India.
watching from India. Awesome.
Nice.
That's
Well,
awesome.
Nice.
We're
Awesome.
just about ready to sign off, but if you haven't seen Blood and Black Lace, watch it, enjoy it, and then come back and watch our commentary on it. And also, I'm going to put a link below to the original episode that we did, so people can go back and listen to our fresh thoughts on, before I was immersed in Giallo, what did I think of this movie? And God bless Brian. Awesome. All right. Well,
by the way, just for Big Swifty, I want to mention that there might be an appearance by the Baron on the next Accademia Giallo. So,
which means Brian's going to show up. No.
He'll have his own screen.
Perhaps.
All right. Well, yeah. Oh, was that him popping in for that test when we had that blip out earlier?
That must have been it.
Ooh,
Maybe.
with all black screen. I like it. All right. Cool. Well, thanks everybody. Take care, and we'll catch you next month.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, wait. Class dismissed. Wait, hold on.
Oh,
Thanks for awesome welcome. I will definitely watch it.
cool.
And yes, Martino. Now I'm ending the broadcast, I think.